The Tampa Bay Buccaneers trade out of the first round of the NFL draft, picking up 3 additional picks in the process from the Jacksonville Jaguars. We talk about that trade and the potential targets at pick number 33 next. Let's go.
Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where we are streaming live for the very first time right now. Let's hope this goes well. We thank you for making us your first listen or view of the day, which is accurate because it's 12:01 a.m., so we are literally your first view of Friday for those of you in the live stream. I am James Yarcho. I am joined by David Harrison, who is on location at the Washington Commanders facility, and Evan Klosky of WTSP. Follow everything on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, at DHarrison82, and at eKlosky WTSP. Let's get this out of the way real quick first so we're not interrupted by all of our draft talk. This episode brought to you by Shady Rays. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that gives you the featured $200 sunglasses for the fraction of the price. That means polarized lenses, well-constructed durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Also, something you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' Insane Protection Program. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every pair. They will send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. Give them a try. You are going to love them. And if you don't, you will pay nothing. Simple as that. And 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays. Exclusively for our listeners, head to shadyrays.com. Use code LOCKED ON to get 50% off 2 or more pairs. That's code LOCKED ON for their best deal of the season. 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses, backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews. Gentlemen, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers make a trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars, picking up picks number 33, pick 106, and pick 180. So instead of drafting in the first round, they now have the first pick of the second round, the first pick of the fourth round, and the first pick of the sixth round. David, I know your time is limited. Let's get your thoughts on the trade first before Evan and I dive deep into what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, we gotta address the elephant in the room in the real serious matter at hand here, and that is, of course, the draft jersey giveaway. James, we've already gotten some DMs and messages about that. Listen, the jersey giveaway is the first player that the Buccaneers select, not the first round player that the Buccaneers select. So if you guessed a player or a position that has not been drafted yet, and the Buccaneers pick that position or that player, you are still in that. So now the important business is out of the way. I love the trade back only because if the Buccaneers truly don't love any of the players that were potentially available at number 27 for what they're trying to do today and in 2022 and for the future, again, Jason Light has mentioned having to try to balance the seriousness of both, then the best thing to do in a class that is so talent rich in the middle of the group is to trade back and get more picks in the middle part of this NFL draft. It's something that Jason talked about previously about you might not have 30 guys with first round grades. Apparently they didn't have 27, at least not the ones that were on the board. And I know some players have come off since then that you and I like, James and Evan, and you probably liked. I know even Scott Smith, senior writer netter at Buccaneers.com, liked. But if Jason Light and Todd Bowles decide they want to go in a different direction, then follow the light, as we've said in years past, James. So that's what I'm going to do here in this situation.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm a big fan of the trade back as well. But David, I know you got to get out of here. We appreciate you stopping by, giving your initial thoughts. Of course, you and I will be back with another bonus episode on Saturday, talking about the second and third round, and we'll be able to talk about who the Bucs take thanks to this trade back to start things off tomorrow night.
Yes,
David,
Evan, OH.
IO, baby. Hey, how about that middle round? Oh.
Unbelievable. Good grief. I real quick, I have a real good friend that's a Bengals fan. He's also a Buckeyes fan. Dude lost his mind over the Dax Hill selection. Lost his mind. He was furious. And I'm like, trying to talk about the ledge. I'm like, I can put away my Buckeye hater glasses to pound the table for Olave. Then you can take off your hater glasses and appreciate how good Dax Hill is.
He's great. Hey, but I understand they want to protect Burrow, but that's a story for another day.
He just didn't want anybody from Michigan.
Really? Oh, once you get to the league, I mean, it's whatever. I'm not even like that.
That's what I said. All right, Evan, let's get your thoughts on the trade down. We heard what David had to say. Yeah. The Bucs. Jason Light said that there's only like 15 guys we have a first round grade on. So if one of our guys isn't there, we're going to explore all options. He wasn't kidding. He wasn't messing around. He talked about the strength of this draft in the middle rounds. They were thin in those rounds. Only 6 picks in the draft, 2 of them at the very end of the 7th round. So what's your takeaway from the move trading back with Jacksonville?
Ultimately, I love the move. Just reading the tea leaves, because, by the way, Jason Light, doesn't always give us transparency in those press conferences. It's, and that's part of the job. You got to swerve the media where you can. But he was forthright in saying, look, I don't think that there's a lot of top-end talent in this draft, but when you get to the meat of it, there are going to be some impact players. And I did not believe that the team was going to find a suitor to give them what they wanted to move down. So I thought that they were just going to have to settle for what they have. But you got to remember, they entered the draft with 6 overall selections. They had none of the 5th, none of the 6th. So now they have sort of recouped that and a little bit more. So they entered with 6. Now they're at 8. So they didn't have a first rounder, but they're going to have 2 2s. They'll have 2 4s. They'll now have a 6th. And now they'll have 2 7s. So, they added, again, from what Jason Light said, they added more pieces to the pie in the beefy part of these picks, especially day 2 and in the beginning of day 3. So that's what I'm most excited about is, being locked in here for what's about to come tomorrow with 3 selections, and then also that 4th round. So there are a lot of players who could be playing some snaps, getting drafted, and they might not be, Hall of Fame ceilings, all pro ceilings, but they're going to do what this team needs, and they got to fill a lot of positions for depth.
And let's not forget, Jason Light, he likes to move around a lot in that draft. He could take that 6th rounder, probably both of those 7th rounders. He can move up into the 5th. He can still get into the earlier part of day 3 if there's a guy that he really likes that's starting to slide down there. Cough, cough, Hassan Haskins, cough, cough. So, I really like the move. If there wasn't somebody they were in love with, Carmen Vitale, formerly of Buccaneers.com, now over there with the Draft Network, said that the Buccaneers had a 2nd round grade on Devante Wyatt. I know a lot of people on social media were kind of up in arms. They're like, how could the Bucs trade out of this pick? You had Devante Wyatt sitting right there, who then goes to the Green Bay Packers because their GM hates their franchise quarterback.
It's so ridiculous. The guy refuses to draft help for Aaron Rodgers.
It's hilarious to me. And Aaron Rodgers deserves no help at all. But that's the story for another day. But you take a look at the guy that I really wanted. I grew to love this guy the closer we got, and you could tell that when David and I did our full 1st round mock draft that, he and I were going back and forth. I was pounding the table for Lewis Cine. I wanted Lewis Cine on this team. I think he would have been a great addition. He would have been the perfect complement, an immediate day 1 starter next to Antoine Winfield Jr. in the back end of the defense. Instead, he goes to the Minnesota Vikings with the very last pick of the 1st round. He may not have gotten to Tampa anyway. Detroit could have taken him there. They could have gone quarterback to get that 5th-year option. You never really know. But you saw Devante Wyatt come off the board. You saw Lewis Cine come off the board. I already mentioned the Cincinnati Bengals. They get Dax Hill. He was linked to the Buccaneers in a couple of mock drafts. So you take a look at what the Buccaneers have lining up for them to start off, day two. You have Andrew Booth out of Clemson, a corner that could come in and give them some help. Logan Hall, who became a popular name among mock drafters towards the end there. Trey McBride, could they start day two with a tight end? Maybe. You still have Jalen Petrie from Baylor. You still have Nakobe Dean floating out there. So what direction do you see the Buccaneers going to start day two, given some of, still really, really good players that are sitting there waiting on them?
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, it's really tough to pinpoint where this team's going to go. There are so many options, and I'm thinking about what this team needs, and I think a lot of fans are going to have to realize that, though we do not know what's going to happen with Gronk and Ndamukong Suh, because at least it seems like if there's one or two needs, at least for now, it's defensive line and tight end. Now, we all believe here that Gronk is going to be back. So if Gronk comes back, you can kind of, first off, this draft is pretty deep at tight end.
Mm-hmm.
B, you can push that pick later in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
You need the draft depth. You need somebody in the system here, but you don't need to really bump that need up as high. The defensive line, as you mentioned, I mean, you have Travis Jones out there. You have Logan Hall. And if one gets taken, you might see the team trade up in the second to make sure they can secure one of those guys. I would imagine that they're thinking that. I would hope, because they definitely do need defensive line help anyway, regardless of Suh or not. But I still think that they just need depth across the board at almost every position, because unlike last year where everybody returned and you were able to also kind of return the backup pieces, you definitely need some fill-ins. And so in saying that, you mentioned Andrew Booth, the cornerback. Don't be surprised about a Nakobe Dean. And you might say, man, they don't need a linebacker. But how many snaps did Kevin Minter play last year, right? And that seemed troublesome. And not to mention, this is Devante David's last year on his contract. So you would also maybe think about that as well. You're not going to be able to ride off into the sunset with White and David. So he would be a natural fit to come in and he's a championship caliber player. He would be fantastic. Christian Watson, local product. We saw this team decimated with wide receivers. Go watch the Rams game and see who was playing over there. Even though they brought in Russell Gage, even though they have their pieces in place, you got to remember Chris Godwin is also going to be out for the beginning of the season. So wide receiver probably isn't as deep as you think. And if they do take wide receiver, I think, they're kind of, there are some guys on the roster right now that you're going to have to say goodbye to. So I'm kind of looking at that. I actually think that the defensive line, I would be shocked, David, if defensive line isn't selected at some point tomorrow. But I mean, you can even mention Perrion Winfrey, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there are three options out there. So if they don't land one of those three, I'm a little bit confused.
That's actually exactly where I was about to go with that. I think ideally, if I'm Jason Light, I would like to come out of this second round. I want to start things off with Andrew Booth. You have Sean Murphy-Bunting, who came off of a somewhat disappointing season, but it was a combination of injury and then wasn't great when he got back out there. And then you also have Jamel Dean. Both of those guys in the final year of their contract. Are you really going to invest the money to pay both of them to come back next year, or are you going to get a guy like Andrew Booth out of Clemson? And I'm sorry, I'm scrolling. I'm looking for his size right now. So yeah, 6'2", 194. He was Dane Brugler's number 4 corner in the draft. He was ahead of Kaiir Elam, who went to the Buffalo Bills. So I would love to start the night off tomorrow with Andrew Booth and then come back at 60. Maybe you need to move up a couple of spots and you can throw in that 6th rounder you just got if you need to move up high enough, and you come away with Perry on Winfrey. If they end round 2 with Booth and Winfrey, that is a huge, huge win, in my opinion. You can come back in round 3 and you're talking about maybe being able to get a Damian Pierce to be your running back. You're maybe talking about getting a Jeremy Ruckert out of Ohio State to be your tight end. The way they could piece together day 2 is really, really intriguing. I agree with you completely. They need to come away with a defensive lineman for sure, but I don't think I'm using the first pick on in round 2 on a defensive lineman when you have a potentially number 2 corner opposite Carlton Davis sitting right there waiting to be picked. Now, you also brought up Nakobe Dean. I would understand the Nakobe Dean pick. Absolutely. Is he going to be as big of an impact player as maybe Logan Hall or an Andrew Booth would be right out of the gate? No, maybe not. But you're talking about now a guy who's going to get some playing time. He's going to be in a rotation, gives you some insurance in case one of your starting linebackers goes down. Then, hopefully Devante David comes back. I'd love to see him play a few more years. But if not, now you have Devin and Dean sitting there in the middle of your defense for the next 5, 6, 7 years. And that's a pretty lethal combination, if you ask me. So a lot of different directions that we could go. I'd like to know people that are watching live, say in the chat, who do you want to see the Buccaneers take at number 33? Who do you think they will take if that is somebody else? But,
I'm sorry to cut you off, James.
Oh,
I'm seeing G Vegas over here, and you're thinking in the 2nd or the 4th will be a running back. And I don't know if the team needs to draft a running back this high. You got to remember, they have Leonard Fournette under contract. They got Giovanni Bernard. They have Keyshawn Vaughn. And while long-term picture, we don't know what the running back room is going to look like, they can still find value in that 7th round with a running back who I think could fit in fairly nicely. So I don't know if you need to waste that high of a pick. And I also am not 100% sure that you don't try and trade that first selection in the 2nd round and try to get more meat in the middle. Because I'm looking, I think there are probably there are like a really solid 50 players left. I'm like, you look at who's remaining, and I mean, you can keep scrolling through the list, and you're like, dang, I still like that. I like that. I like that. And, I just think that there are a lot of options here for the Bucs, and it really just all depends on if Jason Light and company have a bunch of 2nd and 3rd round grades on people, and they're like, man, it's a feeding frenzy out here. And they might be able to get more for that pick. That's a sexy pick coming up tomorrow. So don't count out another trade down to get even more and try to bring everybody into rookie minicamp, see what they got, and then pump out the best that you can have, and hopefully 6 of them land on your roster at the end of all of this, and most of them end up in the practice squad anyway.
Yeah, well, and I think what G Vegas was saying was the 2nd, 4th round pick that the Bucs have would be the one to target that running back with, not one of the 2nd rounders. But yeah, I mean,
I got you. The 2nd, 4th.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I got you. Okay. That makes sense.
He's thinking along the same lines as you are. All you did was confirm what G Vegas was talking about in the chat.
All right, we see it. I see you. You.
So and G Vegas is talking about how Dean at 33 could be a steal. Gerald, he's saying he would like Dean at 33. But you're 100% right. We had one quarterback go off the board in round 1. Now the Buccaneers are sitting in a position where if a Seattle wants to jump up and try to get Malik Willis or Desmond Ridder, you can slide back a few more spots, pick up another, pick or 2 in the process, and you can continue to try to, the more lottery tickets you buy, the better chance you have at winning, right? So Richard, I see you. He wants
Also,
Dean
the more losses you get. But
That's
I
true.
will say you bring up a tremendous point, right? Because Jason Light has all day to call the homies and be like, man, I'm getting a lot of calls here. Wonder if they're going for Malik. Wonder if they're going for, and then people start getting the itch and wondering, do we really want this quarterback into premier position? And right now, I mean, when you look at the quarterbacks left on the board, I mean, you have him and Ritter, and then what else, right? So
yeah, you have the potential of Sam Howell, I guess. But I mean, my gosh, how fantastic would Desmond Ritter be in Seattle? That to me is such an amazing fit. And I don't know, do they do a divisional trade? We already saw one earlier where I can't even remember who it was. But all of a sudden this team gets I think it was the Jameson Williams trade. That was an in-division trade. Yeah, the Lions came up with the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
Take Jameson Williams. So you just traded within the division. Now you got to go up against this guy for the next decade because he's going to be an absolute stud. Do you see the Panthers move up to 33? That's less of a fall for Tampa to drop back, and maybe they take a Malik Willis or maybe they take Desmond Ritter. Maybe it's not as likely for a quarterback than it is, another positional player, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. And Jason's going to do whatever he can to stockpile picks and try to acquire as much talent as he can for this team, whether that's the Panthers or not.
And look, if they want to trade, I really don't care about that. You might have to pay a little bit of a tax because you're in the division. I might say, sorry. I got a fan base to answer to, and if this guy pops off against us, there goes my job. So you're gonna absolutely pay a tax if you want this to happen. So even beyond that, I'm always the believer that if it's best for you, then you just do it. I mean, there are extenuating circumstances once a player is proven. It's not like I would ever trade like Mike Evans to the Saints, right? I mean, that stuff doesn't happen. But at least here where everybody's an unknown and everybody, everyone's taking their best guesses. If I think that this is the best deal for me and my team and I can get a lot more out of it, then, let it rip because, we're focusing on them getting a potential quarterback. But what about what the Bucs are potentially getting? And who knows if those picks don't turn into more of an influence on the team than whatever Carolina in this hypothetical turns into.
Yeah. Evan, what was your favorite pick of the night? Obviously we can't dive into the Bucs pick because there wasn't one, but going through this draft, you see corners go back to back at 3 and 4. You see Ohio State receivers go back to back to back. If you include Williams, who transferred from Ohio State to Alabama, you see a crazy trade that sends A.J. Brown to the Eagles. You see Hollywood Brown get sent to the Arizona Cardinals. So who do you say comes away from night one the biggest winner, and then maybe who comes away as the biggest loser?
Instead of going like 1-1 like that, let me just give you just things that I liked and things that I didn't like.
Sure.
And one, like the Giants, I thought that they got better today with Thibodeau and Neal. I thought those were two, great selections. I thought the Jets did a great job with their plethora of selections. They were able to add the best cornerback, arguably the best wide receiver in the draft, and then they also got Jermaine Johnson out of FSU, who completely slipped. So as a disruptive force on the defensive line, I actually love Devin Lloyd. I have a hard time believing that he is not going to be successful in the NFL. I believe that the Jaguars completely overthought it with Trayvon Walker. I get the intangibles. I'm a look at the tape kind of guy. And I'm just sorry. It's, I just not a fan of that. I don't necessarily know what the Patriots are doing. They take Cole Strange to fill in for Shaq Mason, who they just traded to the Buccaneers. But that felt like a little bit of a reach for me because all the guards were falling off the board so heavily. And then also, I don't love what the Packers did. I don't. I'm sorry, but first off, you lost the game to San Fran because of special teams. But the defense was not the issue in that game. And the defense has not been the issue for a long time. Like, you have to give Aaron Rodgers somebody. And you have this window, right? The Buccaneers are currently in this window of time, and they are selling everything to make it a success right now. They tried that last year. It didn't work. Injuries happen. It's very hard to repeat, okay? It's why you don't see it very often in any sport, by the way. I just feel like the Packers continually put Aaron Rodgers in these positions of saying, you're the MVP, you can make magic happen, go make it happen. We can have a lesser than core because you'll elevate everybody. And that's just not fair to him. And I think it limits the ceiling sometimes of this team. And when he has an off game like he did in the playoffs, what are you going to do? And the reason that off game happened was because Devante Adams was getting doubled and triple teamed, and his other receivers couldn't get quite open. And then it was a slippery slope. So that's just my little rant there. It's not even anything against the players. It's the philosophy. I don't have anything against Devante Wyatt. I don't have anything against Quay Walker. I just think they should have. You had 2 first round. You should have drafted an offensive piece.
Yeah, but it couldn't happen to a nicer quarterback. So I will shed no tears for Aaron Rodgers.
But I'll say overall, just like in general, nothing really stands out. I think everybody kind of played to what we were fairly expecting, and I thought teams were fairly smart today. The draft moved quickly too, thank the Lord, and I thought there were very little wow, what an awful move sort of scenarios.
Outside of probably that Detroit-Minnesota trade. And the Patriots selection of Cole Strange was a little strange.
Mm-hmm.
But
the biggest news of the day, honestly, outside of the draft was the A.J. Brown trade.
Yeah, which my Titans loving best friend was he said that he was going to go to work even though he was off just because he was so upset about that trade. And it's like, well, it's what happens when you pay your running back, $500 million. You can't afford to pay your wide receiver. And the Titans, according to reports that were floating out there on Twitter, the Titans made him an offer. He cut off communications. He wanted nothing to do with the organization anymore. So it is what it is. Real quick, I do have to give a shout out to Kelsey Conway. She covers the Bengals for the Cincinnati Enquirer. After Ahmad Gardner got drafted by the Jets, she just tweeted out Big Apple Sauce, and I was like, dad jokes are real. And that one was absolutely fantastic. All right, Evan, before we wrap things up, let's make official. You got to stamp it, put your name on a prediction. Who is pick 33 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when round number 2 starts tomorrow night?
You know what? I kind of talked myself into it. It's a trade down.
Okay.
That's
if they don't
trade down, okay. If they do not trade down, let's have a little fun with it. Let's say Christian Watson. Screw it.
Okay. All right.
So I'm just going to go all into helping Brady.
All right. So the official Evan Klosky prediction is Christian Watson, which is kind of out of left field. But hey, what hasn't been out of left field in this draft so far? I really, really want this pick to be Andrew Booth. I really, really do. I think it's Nakobe Dean. So my official prediction is it's Dean at 33 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I love both those guys, so it doesn't matter anyway. If they pick them, I would be big fans of those picks.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, we also have to give a shout out to our friends. You know the ones. I'm talking about those delicious Built bars. especially the Built Puffs. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they are a treat. And just like the OG Built Bars, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. You got churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie, brownie batter in the Puffs flavors. But you could also go back to the peanut butter brownie, the cookies and cream, the cherry barcia, the original flavors, because they're all too delicious. Low calorie, high protein. Most of the Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. At Built Bar, they're all about taste. They make them delicious first, then they figure out how to make them healthy. I don't know how, but they pull it off every single time. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and you're going to get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. David and I will be back tomorrow after rounds 2 and 3. We're going to drop another episode, a bonus Saturday for you, because we got to recap all of the madness going on. Of course, Evan has you covered over there on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com. You can check out my work, including my top day 2 targets dropping over at bucksnation.com. You can check out David's work over at bucksgameday.com, and make sure you are following everybody on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs, at DHarrison82, and at E. WTSP. Thank you all who jumped in and joined the live stream. And as for the contest, I guess we'll find out tomorrow which one of you are in the drawing for the Bucs first selection jersey when it gets released. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, be good to one another, fire those cannons. We thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.